So my mum is coming around tomorrow night. I've got the fridge. I just did my grocery shopping, which I find it very challenging to go grocery shopping. I really literally have to psych myself up to do it because I'm just not a fan of grocery shopping. But the fridge is stuffed with all these wonderful fruits, vegetables, and protein, all kinds of wonderful foods that I'm going to be cooking for my mum. And we're going to have a girly weekend watching movies and TV shows and Netflix. And as soon as the evening comes, I light all the candles. I'm going to put my Christmas tree up this weekend as well. So I'm looking forward to that, and that is a bright thing. That is a positive thing I can look to. It's really funny because I've been talking to my mum about Bam. When I became friends with Bam, I would talk to my mum about her, and sometimes would listen in on Bam's live streams. And every now and then my mum would say, "How's Bam these days? How's Bam?" Wow, I've got a lot to tell her. Wow. So I caught Wiccan's live stream as soon as I came back from grocery shopping. And, I feel a little bit vindicated because I've been doing podcasts on friendships and, talking about certain things that go on with online friendships and the dynamics of online friendships and how, the digital world and the digital age and the age of AI and being online has changed the way we relate to each other. And I did that podcast and I was focusing in on the J-Bell situation with MRB. That wasn't all I was talking about. That was just an inspiration for that podcast. I was talking about online friendships in general and how we can't trust people that smile in our faces just because they smile at us, and that some people are very charming and that, to be wary. And I did that podcast, and Bam went and wrote a CP post about me where she, she went after me. And when I listened to those Amber tapes where she's talking about Amber's daughter, I put the two and two together and I realized, oh my God, this is something that she does. When she sees a comment that she doesn't like, she switches. Now, I feel very vindicated because a lot of Bam's subs rallied around her, and I expect that when she went after me. And I expect that because they're loyal to Bam. And she does have this divide and conquer strategy with her subs. And I recognized that quite a while ago. I'm not stupid. I can see through things. I stepped away from her channel quite a few months ago because she claimed she's seen a comment on my channel and she wrote me an email. I'll read it to you another time. I'm not going to do it now. I can't be bothered to do it now. It's not relevant. But she wrote me an email a few months ago saying that she never said she'd stop being friends with me, but it was a comment. It was like a backhanded comment that she'd seen a comment about her and that she doesn't want to interact on my channel anymore. I said, fair enough. I responded to her and I never went back to her channel. As you would have noticed that I was in her channel a lot. And then suddenly I was no longer to be seen in her channel. I never contacted her again. So I hadn't really spoken to her until she wrote that community post and went after me. And she went after me for no reason. She went after me because of her ego. She had wrongfully thought that I was speaking about her in that podcast when I wasn't even speaking about her, never mentioned her name. And I was just speaking in generic terms, but she went after me because what I'd said hit a nerve. And her friends rallied around her and I was supposed to be the baddie. Well, I'm glad I've got vindication for that because now people are realizing that I have done nothing wrong. I mean, my subs already knew that I'd done nothing wrong. But now people are realizing and seeing her for what she is. And I just want to make it very clear that this has nothing to do with Claire Morgan. I still feel the same way I do about Claire Morgan. In fact, I feel that about Claire Morgan and more. Don't want to see her again. Don't believe that she was ever a lawyer. Still feel the same about Frankie's case. Still feel the same about AD. Don't believe that him and Frankie are ever going to meet in a courtroom. I haven't reverted back to being a Ruzek supporter. None of that has changed. However, and I'll get started in a minute. However, after I had done that podcast and Bam had made her post about me, where she went after me, Kiss was like, oh, she's pointing the fingers at Bam. She's blaming Bam, which I never did. Never mentioned Bam in the post in the podcast. And it turns out that may be the case. It may be the case. I'm not 100% sure, but this is what I've been hearing. It turns out after Kiss went and defended her friend, Bam, that Kiss is probably the person in her circle that she's probably disliked for the past 3 years. Bam doesn't even like Kiss. I'm not laughing because I think this is funny. I'm laughing at the irony, the bitter irony. Because Kiss came out in her defense when I made that podcast. And it turns out that Bam doesn't even like Kiss. Turns out that Bam may not like anybody that comes to her chat room. They're just there to be used as tools, objects, or possessions. Once when I was talking to Bam, and I've got all her messages, she would send me voicemails, I've got all of them. I have no current plan on releasing these voicemails because I'm pretty much done with her. And I'm not really, she did, regardless of what I found out about her, when someone tells me something in confidence and they were a friend to me at the time, I rarely will share that with the world. If somebody trusts me as a friend to tell me something, then it's very unlikely that I'm going to go behind their back in any way. That's just not my style, unless I'm really, really pushed to. So once when I was speaking to Bam, she said something and I was like, what? She told me that? I'll never tell anybody what she told me. I don't think she even remembers what she said, but she trusted me. Bam trusted me. I can tell you that she trusted me. I think she trusts everybody because she thinks everyone loves her and she thinks everyone is fooled by her. And that's the thing about people with NPD. And I'm going to talk about that in another podcast. So it just turns out from what I'm hearing, the gist of what I'm hearing, everybody in her chat was somebody she thought that she could use. You know those PayPal links that she posts? Well, it's not as optional. It is not as optional to donate to her as she makes out. She expects you to donate to her. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Now, I want to get onto the Amber thing. I had actually started talking to Wiccan before I actually became friends with Bam. Wiccan used to come to my channel because I was talking about Frankie's crowdfunding. And I was talking about Iva and I was talking about associated things. So I actually knew Burren, now Wiccan, before I got friendly with Bam, about a year before. So not everybody in Bam's channel did I become friends with them just because of her. I actually knew, at very least I knew Burren before. I was talking to Burren before I began talking to Bam. And Burren, Wiccan, I'll just call her Wiccan now, she was Bam's biggest supporter at the time. She was Bam's biggest supporter, and it turns out that Bam wasn't a great friend to her either, and I'll just leave it at that. But to my understanding, with the Amber Forrest Gump thing, and I'm just going to pause here to gather my thoughts. Now, Amber has been coming to my channel for quite some time. She's been coming to my channel for a few years. So she knows my opinions on the AD stuff, and she knows all of my opinions. And we sometimes have conversations now and then, and I've always pretty much gotten along with her. We've had our differences, but I pretty much get along with Amber and have a civil relationship with her. So if she comes to my channel, we'll have a conversation, and we're the type of people that are mature enough to agree to disagree. And even when I was friends with Bam, I would talk to Amber every now and then, and Amber would give me her side of the story. Now, what I gathered with that situation, with the phone, I thought it was a phone call. I don't know if it was a phone call or a live stream, but what I gathered with that situation with Amber's daughter, I thought, and this is what I was told by one of Bam's friends, I was told that people had been calling her grandson Forrest Gump for quite some time, and that there was a build up to that. It just didn't happen overnight. She didn't have that reaction overnight, that there was a build up. Now, the movie Forrest Gump is one of my favorite films. And what I take from that movie is that although Forrest Gump, the main character, is special needs, that is almost, it's not completely, it's not the full story. Yes, he's special needs. However, what is important, the message I get from that movie is that he has a good heart. He has a pure soul, a pure heart. He's caring. He has empathy. That's what I get from the Forrest Gump movie. I get, it's about love. It's about somebody who is a good person despite their special needs. So even if people were calling her grandson Forrest Gump, and I know the associated terms with that, with the Forrest Gump name, but even if so, even if that was the case, that reaction that she had and what she was saying is completely and utterly unacceptable. But I didn't have the full story. I thought it was just a one-off thing. I thought people had been calling her grandson Forrest Gump, and somebody had said something of the kind and more, and then it was something where it was the last straw. She had that reaction and it was a one-off thing. But now looking at it from a different perspective and seeing it being posted on that channel, and her reaction came after somebody had simply hearted a comment of Gump Granny, now I realize how just unacceptable this is. And like I said, I've recently spoken to Amber about this. This was completely unnecessary. This is a completely unnecessary reaction. And no one should condone it. And it was an overreaction. What, you're going to act like that just because someone hearted a comment about Gump Granny? I've come to the conclusion, at the very least, if I can say something good about her, at least she knows what she is. There's psychopathy going on here with this woman, but there's also very extreme, this is a very extreme case of NPD. She thinks she's better than everybody and she looks down on everyone. And that's it. That's why she has all of these attributes. That's why she reacts the way she does. That's why she behaves the way she does. And that's why she has a divide and conquer strategy with her subs, because she actually believes that she is the business. She believes that she's a superior narcissist. That's what she is. She thinks she's superior to everybody. And she's actually said about that reaction that she would do it again and she wished that she'd done it sooner. Now I have a fuller picture of what happened, and it was just an innocent comment that was hearted. I can absolutely say this is not acceptable, and I don't condone what she said or did. And I said that when I was actually friends with her, which I don't think she liked. I never said it to her because we never really had that conversation. I think we spoke about her briefly. Once when I was speaking to her, somebody was live streaming, and I'm not going to say who it is, and they were talking about the Claire Morgan thing, and they were basically saying the same things that we've been saying about Claire Morgan. And she was upset that this person was live streaming, and I couldn't understand why. There were times when I'd talk to her and she would seem down, and I'd say, come on, cheer up, we all love you, because I'm that type of person. Once somebody was live streaming about Claire Morgan, and I look back on it now and I think to myself, she didn't like the fact that her subs were in that chat. I thought she would have been happy that somebody else was saying the same thing that we were saying about Claire Morgan, or that she was saying about Claire Morgan, because it kind of, if you're saying something about someone and somebody else is saying it, it kind of adds strength to your argument. It kind of adds weight. It substantiates what you're saying when multiple people are saying the same thing. So I couldn't understand why one day when I was speaking to her, she was upset that another person was live streaming about Claire Morgan. I'm not going to say who it is right now. But looking back on it and realizing that she has an ego and that there's MPD going on and psychopathy going on, I realized that one of the reasons she didn't like the fact that this person was live streaming is because half of the people who come to her channel on a regular basis was in that live stream chat, and she didn't like the fact that that person was getting the attention of her subs. I don't think that's the only reason why she didn't like the fact that people were live streaming about Claire Morgan. But I honestly look back on it now and I think to myself, she wants to have control over people. That's what I think. I don't think she liked the fact that me and EK got along very well and had similar opinions either. EK would often come to Emerald Eyes, I'm talking about, would come to my channel and leave comments. And she would often leave very long comments that I would pin because EK, she's a good writer. She's very fair and balanced. So I would often pin her comments. And I don't think Bam like that. And you know, I'm digesting everything, and I'll continue to talk. I'll talk about this with my mum over the weekend. I'm kind of a bit wary of telling my mum that our lovely Bam is not as lovely as we would have hoped, and I'm saying that sarcastically.